UK and how I think it has gone astray. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up. But you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start my own nation with myself and reservation. I'm gonna start my own nation with myself and reservation.
The red flag, flag here.
And welcome everybody to the. We're getting so good at this because we don't hear any of the music and we just have to go. You're very welcome. A big shout out to James Summerall who's doing leaflets. Sort of the joke is that we've all five of us just rolled in from doing leaflets and delivering leaflets and trying to cram 4 days of campaigning all into one day because we weren't allowed for 3 days. And so goodness knows what the quality of this discussion is going to be. But I do note that Stephen Humphrey referred to the dream time. And I think I hope he meant dream team, because if we put them to sleep, well, then we're failing at our task. So here they are, the dream team, ladies and gentlemen. Stuart Sutherland, Laura Daly, Samantha Townsend, and the tech genius himself, Paul Daly. Welcome, everybody. Hello. And I think we go straight. Laura, what is your moment of the week?
So my moment of the week
Love the
has
glasses,
been...
by the way, Laura. Love the glasses.
Thank you. It's only because I've got sore eyes because I've been on the computer too much. I'm not trying to be too fashionable or anything.
They are.
Yeah, so
is that new hair as well? Is that new hair?
New hair. That is not my moment of the week, but yes, it is new hair. I got outside.
I'm getting excited about that. I'm going to wait because I've had my second injection, so I still look like the wild man of Bonnie. But anyway, moment of the week.
So my moment of the week was an article in the Chronicle that I'm sure you'll have all seen by now, and it was basically trying to track down Paul Howell and Scott Durham about the criticism of their lack of anything in Newton Aycliffe as councillors, especially because they have other things that they do. Obviously, Paul Howell is our MP, and had said he was going to stand down previously and didn't, and the whole big thing. If you've been following what we're doing, we've highlighted a few issues along the way, and their comeback. I mean, read the article. It's really interesting and I found it quite funny. But for me, the best part about it was part of the comeback was, well, John D. Clare is really well known and people really like him, so they go to him. That's not our fault. It's just like, okay. I mean, true. John's very likable and approachable and will work hard, but is it that everyone...
we may have some comments on the stream about that. It was very complimentary to me, wasn't it?
It was, rightly so.
I have been on Facebook about this. I won't hear anything bad said about them as human beings. They've both been delightfully polite and helpful to me to get my 2017 promises into place. And so as human beings, I've really got on well with them. But the facts, Laura, is that in the first 3 years of the term of office, I reported 549 issues that needed dealing with. That was just a Durham County Council. It doesn't count living. 549. They did 20 between them. Mm-hmm. And sort of, they're absolutely correct what they say on that the full burden of one of the largest wards in the county has fallen on me, and it has been exhausting. And and a very different thing from when we had 3 Labour councillors and we were able to share their work. But they are nice people. They are nice people. But a sneaking pleasure at seeing that. Samantha, have you been have you been enjoying the relaxation of lockdown in any way?
I have also been out and had a feminine sort of preening thing done. I had my nails done. They're fantastic. You
They
can't
are
see.
fantastic indeed.
They've got like metallic red, because like she said, what color do you want? And I said, well, there's only one color.
Well, what a silly
One
question.
color. It's red. Actually, I've got to pick a different moment of the week because it's a bit rubbish, isn't it? Saying I got my nails done. That's a moment of the week.
I don't think so. I think that sort of we've been virtually under house arrest, Samantha, and sort of, you know, it's a bit like when you get out of prison. Sort of you want to go and anyway. What's your moment of the week?
I want to say it's lovely. It's a real sort of bittersweet moment of the week. The fact that without an election, Shildon Town Council is already Labour controlled. The 11 of the 17 town councillors have been 12 town councillors have been appointed without an election having to take place, because there were exactly the same amount of people nominated for roles as there were seats available. So there's no need for an election because they all won anyway. And so there were 11 of those are Labour, and the number of maximum people on the council is 17. So we already have like an overriding Labour group for Shildon Town Council, which is obviously great news for me as a Labour fan. But it's just a bit disappointing, isn't it? That because these are the exact same 2 wards that didn't have an election 4 years ago. I'm not even sure when those 2 wards last had an election, you know. So it's not, doesn't ring democratic bells, does it? You feel like elections are a good thing for democracy, but at the same time, people need to stand up and put themselves forward, you know, at the end of the day. And you know, it just means that once again, when people complain about our volunteer town councillors, about what they do and don't do, I can say, well, next time you need to put yourself up, because they got there without having to go through an election.
One of the Barbara, by the way, my wife, she's also going to be a councillor without an election because there were only 6 people stood at Woodham, and I share your desire that there may be more interest in. But one of the things I say is they are just as validly elected as people who've been through an election. It's not. There's nothing less valid about their election, but sort of. But you're going to have to fight an election, are you? You're.
I am. I'm doing 2 because I'm greedy. So I've got a town council election and a county council election to fight, but I've got help. I've got my Labour team, which is another positive about being in a political party, isn't it? You've got people to fall back on and help you, which is good because, like you say, we've had days stolen from us. And the postal vote drop will be happening next week, so we don't have time.
That's another thing, isn't it? That what percentage of is it 3/4 of the votes or 2/3 of the votes are postal votes? Postal votes occupy a huge percentage of the actual vote, and to the extent that by the middle of next week we won't know the result, but in fact the result in most wards will be decided.
And it's not that more people have postal votes. It's just that people who have postal votes are more likely to vote. They're more likely to return them. So the proportion of the total vote is weighted heavily towards the postal votes.
And they get them and they fill them in and they send them off.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, thank you for that moment of the week. Stuart, moment of the week.
Mine's a dead easy one because it happened today. I've been out leafleting all day. You know, done many miles. Anyway, before I had even got home, I'd had an email from a resident who'd seen the details on the leaflet, and we had a cracking discussion about, you know, my manifesto, as it was described, and you know, all the residents' concerns were my concerns, and it was really, you know, a warm feeling knowing that I'm on the right track. I think with the good people of Chiltern.
Your manifesto, your leaflet, was a corker, because what you did, which was so clever, and I just wish I'd got that trick myself, is you put that thing with all your things you wanted to do and said, put an X against all the things you'd like to see. And then you said, oh, by the way, if you put lots of X's in those boxes, put an X in my box on and I just thought, oh, was that your idea, Stuart?
It wasn't. It was a joint idea. All the leaflets been worked through with Simon, our campaigns coordinator, and we've been going back and forth, and he's been putting the work in for me. He's been good.
To tell you the truth, he's held out on me on that one because I thought it was a brilliant idea, brilliant leaflets. And what are your main things that you're standing on, Stuart?
I want to make sure, you know, it's a smart, clean town, green and clean. It's a big deal. I want to get some trees back because we did see some deforestation in the ward recently, you know. So I plan on planting some trees. I'm sure that's going to be a hell of a task. And I want to make
the planning application down Durham Road, hasn't there? Which is he's going to chop down an awful lot of trees. So
40 trees.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did vote when it was at town council level. I did vote against it, but you know, planning permission is make some guidelines and it's granted rather than the way lots of people think that planning permission is granted. Lots of people just imagine that some money is flashed in front of council and they'll give people planning permission for anything, and it's not. It's very difficult for a council to say no under most circumstances.
But I find it a disappointment. Nobody has ever offered me money, ever. I mean, not that I would take it, but I've never been thought worth the attempt. But yes, you're absolutely right. And the thing about planning as well is that it's like a GCSE exam. You don't have to get 100% to pass. If you just get 45%, that's it. That's enough. They're over the bar and it's granted. And you're absolutely right. The members of the committee just have to say, well, if it's 45%, there's nothing we can do. So, but I agreed with you. I shared the worry about the loss of biodiversity. Anything? So you like green and clean biodiversity?
Yeah, biodiversity, green and clean. You know, being a visible on the streets councillor full time. You know, I plan on making it my job if I can. Lots of people, you know, can and do an excellent job in their spare time, but I think I'd like to be able to contribute more, and I think that would push the ward forward.
Brilliant.
And you know, the things I want to do. There's not enough room on a leaflet.
There's well, the man if you don't elect you. And Paul.
Hello.
Moment of the week.
I'm going to be super quick. I could say all sorts of different things about length of hair, beards disappearing, less BG like, but more I don't know, 70s or whatever. But yeah, and interesting seeing Graham Marsh commenting about Paul Howell being criticised for being a businessman. He actually wasn't criticised for being a businessman. He was criticised for using public money to pay for rent when he rents out 16 homes. It's slightly different to that, and I think landlordism is a big problem. But we want to get to the big story very quickly, which is Ulster, and people are talking about that. They're excited to talk about that. So my moment of the week is just simply that 1% of there's been a report by the UN, 1%. The top 1% of earners cause more than double the amount of climate change as the bottom 50% of humanity. It's a huge story. Go and look it up. I'm sure someone will drop it in the comments.
Yes, please do. That's an important story. And thank you, everybody, for your moments of the week. But now it really is time.
Now it's time for the
big story.
And I'm assuming that the jingle's finished. The big story, it has to be the resuming of the troubles in Northern Ireland. Deeply distressing issue. Paul, can you start off by explaining to us what's been happening? You may want to fill in some of the background and then some comment on it, please.
Well, if you've got 200 years, I'll give you some background. But you know, this is a deeply complex issue. Oh, John, you've kind of disappeared there. But yeah, it's a deeply complex issue, and there's all sorts of things going on. Personally, in my own personal background, my dad was a Catholic from Belfast. He left Belfast because his mates were either being murdered or arrested, family members murdered and things like that. And this issue is a really difficult one for anyone to get right, particularly for me to get right. So just remember that I'm always coming from that perspective, but I'm going to be very, very clear about what I think the issues are, and I've never lived there, so I've always got this sort of tainted view of what life in Ulster's like. So it's always been really lovely every time I've been over, even though growing up, when I used to like laugh at other people who were all of a sudden terrified of a bomb scare or something like that, which I just didn't get it because it was part of normal life in Ulster when I was a kid. You know, when I'd go over there, and that sounds really weird, but I remember other people panicking about a bomb scare at the metro centre or something. I was like, what are you worried about? Like, you know, that, you know, I don't know. It's a bit worrying that it was so normalised. But anyway, back to the story. Now, a lot of people are trying to say that this is a big Brexit issue and this is all about Brexit. It's not all about Brexit, okay? So what we had is we had the Good Friday Agreement in 1998. Now, that's a long time ago. And the Good Friday Agreement, it did a lot of good, and I'm not going to slate it. I don't think it was a terrible thing. However, what I think is a big problem is it didn't involve communities enough. So communities weren't involved enough in the Good Friday Agreement. And we can't keep pointing back to 1998 and saying, oh, isn't this great, when actually loads of the issues were never resolved. So we've got segregation in Northern Ireland. There, like, you can identify whether someone's Protestant or whether it's Catholic, whether they're Catholic, because of their school uniforms, because they have a segregated education system, and those divides remain. Like, you've got peace walls up between Protestant and Catholic communities. You've got atheist Protestant and atheist Catholics who identify as such. They don't believe in God, but they do consider themselves Protestant or Catholic because it's transcended those meanings because of this deep colonial issue that you've got going on in the province. And you can look back as far as 1917. You can look back before that. You can look back to the potato famine. But for me, it's about colonialism, and then all the problems that have come out of that. And we see this all over the world, and we still see this, I think, in Ireland. But the only way to tackle this issue, if we want to really tackle this issue, is we're going to have to tackle inequality. We're going to have to desegregate schools, get people educated together, get people working together. And rather than having a working class that is fighting against one another, so poor Catholics and poor Protestants being told by really ridiculous and reckless politicians such as Arlene, who is just saying absolutely preposterous things and then walking away and leaving working class kids to be throwing petrol bombs at each other. You know, this sort of behaviour is absolutely disgusting. For me, there is no difference between people like who are Catholic and Protestant other than what the myths they grow up with, the kind of beliefs that they have, that someone is other than them. They're not other, and the establishment is trying to make working class people fight against one another, and this is what it always comes down to. You know, when people can't pay the bills and put food on the table, then often they'll cling to their identities really, really tightly. Well, at least we've got this, at least we're together on this. When in reality, think of what people could achieve when they're saying, actually, we're being messed around by a government. England don't care about Northern Ireland. They never have done. They really don't care. And, they couldn't even be bothered to do the research over when they did Brexit. And I'm not saying this is just a Brexit issue, by the way, but they couldn't be bothered. They don't care about Northern Ireland. And that's a really sad fact. What we should be doing as a group of people, as people who are working class, we should be pushing forward together to fight against these ridiculous injustices rather than having people othering one another and fighting against one another when their causes are really absolutely the same. And don't get me started on the politicians over there and the church over there, who'll just try and play on things for votes. They'll try and play on these segregations because I've got to get in next time. You've got all like cash for ash and everything like that. Arlene Foster's just trying to whip up a little bit of publicity because she is an absolute mess of a politician. She doesn't know what she's doing. All she's got to fall back on is sectarianism, and that's how she's going to try and win her votes back. That's my opinion. Other people can come in here who actually live there and they can feel free to tell me I'm wrong, because that's absolutely fine. But that's where I feel.
Thank you, Paul. You said it wasn't about Brexit, but the Good Friday Agreement, as I saw it, what it did is it allowed Northern Ireland to be both things at once. It allowed loyalists to still be part of the United Kingdom, and that sort of played to their sense of identity and allowed them and meant that they didn't feel threatened, which is a key thing for the I'm going to call it Protestant community, and yet at the same time the community which we call Catholic, when you're absolutely right, it's nothing to do with religion, because they were in the EU, they have free, in a way, the island of Ireland was united. And so they could find an identity, a cross-border identity with Southern Ireland, with ERA, and with the broader EU. And what Brexit has done, this Tory-mediated Brexit, it's managed to, as far as I'm concerned, it's managed to destroy both of those, because it's split off Southern Ireland. There is now a border. There is no longer that joint identity for Catholics. And yet at the same time, they put a border in the sea, which has absolutely visibly ruined the relationship between Northern Ireland and the rest of the United Kingdom. And how can I I'm sorry to everybody else who sat there very patiently listening while me and Paul are twittering on to each other. But the fact of the matter is that I think that Brexit has been absolutely crucial in destroying what in fact was always an accommodation agreement. It wasn't a solution, you're absolutely correct, but it actually allowed an accommodation. So, to what extent do you blame Brexit, Paul, for the sudden collapse of the Good Friday truce?
Right, so there are aspects of Brexit that I blame for this, but it's not necessarily it's not just Brexit, okay? It's not just Brexit. The problems were there, the problems were deep, there were still walls dividing people, there was still massive segregation going on, and this has just exacerbated it. Now, what it has caused the problem, it's caused a political problem that has wound up communities, okay? So people can still identify, like say, I can still get an Irish passport. I'm entitled to an Irish passport. I'm dual nationality because my dad was born on the island of Ireland, okay? So that is still a possible thing. So you can still identify as whatever you want. The problem is you had the DUP, which were propping up the Tory government, and the DUP, I don't know why they were taken seriously as politicians. Like, they deny that dinosaurs exist. This is my opinion, because some people like them. But I think, for me, they're playing to sectarian narratives. I don't like the idea of sectarian politics at all, actually. I think it should be about class issues. I think it should be about issues that affect people in their pockets and in their lives and things, rather than trying to play it as sectarian narratives. However, and that goes for Sinn Féin as well, for example, like, you know, they have, you know, they also are guilty of playing into these sectarian narratives to try and make sure that they get enough votes so they get in next time and so on. But the way Arlene Foster has played this, she didn't vote for Theresa May's deal, which would have been pretty much status quo for the Good Friday Agreement. Dominic Raab, who was Brexit minister, said he didn't read the Good Friday Agreement. Like, come on, just read it. Just read it. It's like 30-odd pages long. It's not really difficult if it's your job. Every successive ministers for Northern Ireland from the Tories haven't read the Good Friday Agreement. They don't even know what it's about. And the DUP wanted there to be like, they basically wanted a massive separation between the North and the South. They wanted a physical infrastructure, I think. When they found out that the only way it can be plausibly done is to put a border in the Irish Sea, they've gone, God, we've blown this, like, we've really, really messed up. The outcome of this is going to be a united Ireland. Let's kick off. Let's cause as much trouble as we can and get people on our side and get them wound up about sectarian issues, because otherwise we're going to be kicked out of our jobs. That's what I think's happening.
Some good comments from Jane Strange, which we may want to pick up later, Sam. Sam, share what you feel about all this. What's your opinion on the problem? Have you got any solutions?
I mean, I know, and I agree, you know, nothing's ever simple, and politicians particularly like to make complicated issues sound simple, because when you make a complicated issue sound simple, you can make it sort of apply to your agenda quite easily. So it's not just a Brexit issue, but I just want to underline the point Paul made about how utterly reckless our government have been throughout the whole Brexit episode about the relationship with Ireland, the whole, or all of Ireland as a whole. You know, it's just like up until it was like they didn't even consider that peace was something that we needed to think about when we were talking about how we were going to work out these different borders and which part would be in Europe and which part would be Brexity UK. You know, it's just and unfortunately, I mean, what my Northern Irish friends are saying is the mainland doesn't care about us. And it's really hard to argue with that when it's clear that during like these really tense negotiations, the people at the top table weren't thinking about Ireland at all. Literally wasn't even a footnote on a piece of paper. And that's just shocking and deplorable, and these people need to be held account.
Sam, I mean, during the discussions for Brexit, one of the, and everybody talking glibly about Northern Ireland, as you so correctly say, one of the ideas that came out was that sort of amongst this extremist Tory government, there were those who regarded the Good Friday Agreement as a defeat, and they wanted the opportunity to return and take on the IRA again and beat them this time. Sort of, I mean, do you sense any of that, or was just that idle talk, do you think?
I mean, I hope it's just idle talk, but knowing the extremes that some of our Conservative Party are currently, you know, I wouldn't discount it as something that people actually believe. We've got some really, really extremist politicians in place at the moment, and they don't live in the same world as the rest of us. It's just a game, just a game to them, you know. Again, shameful.
Thank you. Stuart, have you any ideas for solutions, any ideas for way forward, even from where we are now?
Well, other than that, escalation is bad and de-escalation is good.
Yes.
You know, I'm no master of negotiations, You know, so much to think about and so much going on. It's really a big, you know, big issue. It needs proper, you know, thought and care and attention, and we're not going to get that from this government, are we?
Nor even from the politicians in Northern Ireland. I mean, one of the big problems about when you get two communities against each other, every time they look as though they might be beginning to come together and form an accommodation, all it needs is some extremist to lob a bomb into the situation, and woof, we're back to square one. Once you've allowed that break to occur, it's really very difficult, and de-escalation, not escalation, for goodness sake. Yes. Laura, I haven't come to you because I think you'd rather not comment. I'm not ignoring you for the sake of it. Do you want to say anything, or do you want
I
to?
don't. I mean, I don't mind making a comment. I don't want to weigh in on the whole debate very heavily, simply because I feel like I'm in a very difficult position because well, my dad's Northern Irish as well. He's a Northern Irish Protestant, and Paul's dad's a Northern Irish Catholic, and we don't have any problems in the family. Everyone's lovely. We all love everyone. We all care about each other. But it's almost bordering on embarrassing how little I know about the situation. And my family are from Ireland. And I think I feel really uncomfortable trying to whittle down hundreds and hundreds of years of sectarianism and divide into a conversation about Brexit. I mean, at the minute, essentially what you've got is poor loyalists throwing bombs at poor Republicans, and I do think that has been perpetuated by Arlene Phillips, and I do think it's a case of political maneuvering. Now, the people doing these actions probably won't think that, and they'll feel very strongly. Of course, they feel very strongly, otherwise they wouldn't resort to these actions. But I think they'll feel strongly about their identity. There's a whole identity issue in Northern Ireland, and I think that's probably where this stems from. But it was okay for a bit. I mean, it's never been perfect. Like Paul says, you know, there are peace walls still about, and you still know the areas that are Protestant and the areas that are Catholic. But it just feels like that's all being stoked up for the wrong reasons, and it's really upsetting to see these young people being dragged into it and becoming criminals because of it, and people being hurt. It's all really devastating, and it's unacceptable. Our government needed to have done more. The DUP and everybody over there needed to have done more. People just needed to care a bit more, I think. I don't have any solutions because, like I say, this is like hundreds of years old issues. This is not just something that we can go, well, let's fix Brexit and everything will be fine, because it won't be. So yeah, it's a difficult one.
I wrote a book about Northern Ireland. It's a history book about for schools, and taught it for many, many years.
Oh well, John, I'll sign me up for a lesson.
Well, it was 1985, so it had misses an awful lot of the modern stuff, but it is so deeply entrenched, and I am terrified for the future. It will not just go away, this, and we've got Boris in charge of it, and I am genuinely scared for the future. And people forget, you see, people forget what it was like to live in those times, in the times of the Troubles, and they get blasé about peace, and you can lose it just like that. Some comments here, but generally, most people saying we don't know enough about this, and sort of some will pick them up, but I think that's the case. Last comment, Paul?
Just we may be doing something on this in the future. Some of you will have seen our St. Patrick's Day thing, which was more about the island of Ireland. We may be looking into doing something on Socialist Think Tank about this, because the political education around the situation is so poor. So we're looking at trying to do that, and do you know, sometimes it's insulting. It is really, really insulting the way politicians. I don't mind ordinary people being totally unaware of situations. It's frustrating when we saw really stupid comments about, like, you know, different people, like Jeremy Corbyn, for example, like really ignorant, silly comments. But I'll accept that from people who don't know any better. But politicians using that, horrendous, absolutely horrendous.
Yeah. We'll look forward to that, and thank you very much indeed. Taking the wind out of our sails, but let's move on. We've got another jingle, I think, before the other stories. Away, Paul. And we're off the other stories. A third of teachers are considering exiting the profession. As I remember it, this is an improvement on how it was in my day, when almost every teacher was busy digging their tunnel. But here we go, Laura. What have we got? What have you got to say about that?
Yeah, so the National Education Union have done a survey of their members, which is, I think they asked about 10,000 of their members. Bear in mind, though, that not all of their members are just teachers. Some of them are support staff or people who work in schools. So I don't know if it was just teachers that they asked, or if it was just who responded. If it was everybody, I'm not sure. There's a suggestion that the teachers want to leave because, well, the last year under COVID has been brutal. That's absolutely true. It has been brutal. You know, I've a lot of my friends, and my husband's a teacher. It's been awful to watch. But I think what we need to bear in mind is that this is nothing new. Like you were saying, John, it's nothing new. We lose a lot of teachers in the first 5 years. Newly qualified teachers, the retention rate for newly qualified teachers is horrendous. And I think it's because there was a time when being a teacher and getting recruited as a teacher was something to be really proud of. And we used to recruit the best and the brightest here in the UK. That's somewhat dwindled. And I think people thought teaching was a noble profession to get into, but the NQTs now are, you know, that we see in a lot of schools at the minute that they get taken on extra responsibility for no extra money, but it's like, you know, put this in your back pocket and you'll move up quicker. But they see nothing for it, and they're just essentially doing other people's work for no extra money. And the workloads, even for just standard classroom teachers who go in, do the job, come home, there's none of that you can switch off. It is, you come home, you do 2 hours of marking, you do 6 hours at a weekend of planning or whatever. The workload is intense. I think striking a workload balance for teachers is really difficult, you know, a work and home life balance. It's near on impossible, and this is not something that is just I mean, I'm glad this has been done and it's being highlighted, but it's not a new thing. COVID has made things worse, but in a different way, because no one really knew what online teaching would be like. So it is in a different way, but workload, pay, pensions have been ongoing issues for a long time. The fact that 1/3 of teachers want to leave, that wouldn't surprise me. I love teachers, and I think what they do is incredible, and I think they're really brave to do it. I always say you couldn't pay me enough to be a teacher. I see too many people struggling. It's a really difficult job, and they need as much support as they can get. So yeah, and also I think there's an issue of once teaching's got you. Obviously you're in it for a reason. Most teachers I know are quite passionate about wanting to educate our young people, but also because the pay is not awful. Most teachers get to, once you've passed that newly qualified threshold and you've gone up your pay scale a little bit, it's not astronomical pay, but it is difficult to then leave and do something else. Now I think teachers it's difficult because you have so many transferable skills as a teacher, but what do you do? Where do you go? It's really difficult. Once teaching's got you, you're in it. And so there's a sense of feeling trapped and stuff.
Laura, I'm going to go back to you, but there was a lovely old man, older teacher, who my first day of teaching, he sat next to me, and he says, "How's it going?" So I said, "Oh, it's awful. I can't do this job." He says, "John, the first day I became a teacher, I realized I couldn't do the job. But the second day, I realized I couldn't do anything else." So you just have to put up with it. And it just made me laugh.
Well, exactly. There you go. It's been going on a while. Yeah, so I think there are many issues here. The fact that 1/3 of teachers supposedly on the back of this survey want to leave doesn't surprise me. I think it's our job to support them and try and keep the best teachers we've got. You know, people wanted to do it for a reason. We've got to fight for them. We've got to try and get their workload to a manageable level. This is what we should be lobbying governments about. You know, we should be holding them to account for the allowing teachers to be so downtrodden and for their, I mean, they've had a real terms pay cut, you know, and I don't think it's as bad as what the nurses have had, but they're not getting proper pay rises and the workload is ridiculous, and it's really really difficult. So it wouldn't surprise me if that were to be the case.
Samantha, I watched that advert on the television about for the Open University and that lovely Mr. Richards, and he comes to his blackboard, doesn't he? And he writes with his back to the class. He writes Mr. Richards and then underlines it and then turns very self-satisfiedly to his class. And I just feel fresh meat. And the sort of, do you think that the problem with teaching is that it is just not, it is too hard, that there are not enough powers to the job, or and there is too much responsibility and workload? Do you just think it's not a very nice job to do?
I mean, I tell you, because I am a teacher who no longer teaches. I am a qualified secondary school RE teacher, and I love teaching, and I love being around the kids, and I was very good at it. I was outstanding, everything. And then I had a baby. And then, like, how do you fit a family life around a secondary school teaching? It's just, it wasn't possible in the school that I was at the time. I would have been paying somebody else to raise my child, and I decided that wasn't the life I wanted for myself. I was talking to another member of staff who told me that she got part-time contracts so that she could only work full-time hours so that she could raise her children. And so I left that. I did some supply teaching for a while, and then when I decided, okay, I'm ready to go back to teaching now, nobody wanted me, because with only a couple of years experience, I was already too expensive. They could get newly qualified teachers, treat them like absolute dirt, and that would be better and easier for them. So I became weirdly unemployable as an excellent, outstanding secondary school teacher. So there's definitely a problem there. And I think it's pretty unethical, isn't it? That's basically our current teaching situation survives on chewing up young, unexperienced people, overloading them with work, often for little or no extra pay, like Laura says, and squeezing out people with experience. And like Laura said, people who have managed to stick in the job for quite a while may then find they're actually stuck in the school they're at because they can't move schools if they're in an unhappy situation, because they're then too expensive for a new school to take on, in the same way that I was too expensive just with a few years experience.
Thank you. We are running out of time desperately on this one. Thank you for those two fabulous contributions. I'm just going to come quickly to Paul because I know he will be desperate to say something. Stuart, I'm ignoring you on this because I'm going to come to you with your question after this. Quickly, Paul, have you got a comment?
Let teachers teach, and I think that would make people feel a lot better. You know, that's what our union have been pushing for years and years. Just let teachers teach. The job isn't what we sign up for. You know, everything is about trying to prove yourself, and the only way you can prove yourself is through paperwork. So rather than concentrating on the people in front of you, which is important, there's this massive thing where you've got to prove yourself to Ofsted, who are usually failed senior leaders, like people who couldn't hack it as senior leaders, and they end up going and they're inspecting people and telling other people where they're going wrong because they know how to go wrong because they've done it. And we're in this ridiculous situation where like we've got to mark in loads of different coloured pens in spite of the fact that it's proven to be pointless and silly. You know, the education research says don't do that, and yet we do it because it's provable. That's the problem. Let teachers teach. That's the message. Teachers all want to stay because it's a kind of good job when you can just teach in the way you do. It's hard. It's always hard. It's hard every day. Today's been hard for me, and I had quite a good day, and I'm knackered. But you know, let teachers teach. That's it.
Thank you, Paul. Stuart, miserly sick pay scheme undermining the fight against COVID. I have to admit, I don't have a clue what's this about. Can you enlighten us, Stuart, and then give us your...
The news is that statutory sick pay has gone up by 50 pence a week. It's gone up from £95.85 to £96.35, which is clearly not enough to live on. Either way, that 50 pence has made no difference to anybody's life who's stuck on the sick pay. And obviously, if you can't afford to live on sick pay, you've got to return to work if you want to live in your house and feed your kids. And if you're off because you've got COVID, you're returning to work with COVID. So, you know, disastrous.
I understand now, though. Thank you, Stuart. I mean, which is this one union in particular, or the TUC? Who's?
I think every union's come out and said that this is disgusting, and it's also pointed out the fact that sick pay at such a low level may as well be non-existent because it helps so few people, and there's a huge chunk of people who aren't even entitled to the sick pay because they don't earn enough in the first place. So, you know, we need a proper, you know, new deal on sick pay. We need a proper level that you can live on.
Which department of the government deals with sick pay? Do we know offhand?
Yeah, the government sets a level of the basic rate of sick pay, and then it's the employer's responsibility to meet that. So they pay into it. So of your three kind of people who are responsible for delivering welfare, that's one of the few things that employers have to be responsible for.
Thank you, Stuart. Thank you for your knowledge. Paul, sick pay.
Well, if you're not going to pay people to actually take the time off and be able to take the time off, then it's going to spread. It's dead obvious. We have really low levels of sick pay. This probably would have been something that we well, it's not a new thing, is it? We said it a year ago. Make sure that people get paid enough. If you're near your limit, if you are worried that you are maybe like £50, you've got maybe £50 that you could go either way with every month if no disaster happens. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. So who can afford to take 10 days off in this current society? A lot of us don't admit it, but we're all in like loads of debt, whether that's mortgage debt, whether that's credit card debt, whether that's like, you know, having to pay for cars. Everyone's in debt. Most people are a couple of bad days away from losing everything. And I'm not joking. And I think that's something that needs to be totally respected and understood. And, you know, the idea that people think that someone can just take 10 days off. Again, the government they're totally devoid of any understanding of this. They think that, you know, you can just take a couple of weeks off and work from home in one of the wings of your mansion because that is the life they've led. They have never understood us. They don't understand what we do. They don't understand that your life could be ruined for having 1 day off, never mind 10. So that's why COVID has been spreading in the workplace, and we've seen this. We've seen it time and again.
Most people have less than £100 in savings, and there's no wonder that things fall apart so quickly. Laura, no. I was going to say you've been off poorly, haven't you?
I have been off poorly for a long time. Yes.
Because, I mean, is this? I'm struggling not to ask an inappropriate question, but sort of, I mean, did you claim sick pay during that time? And I mean, sort of, was it at all adequate for the need?
So my employer is fantastic. I got paid as normal from my employer. Thank God, because if I just had to get the statutory sick pay from the government, it's not adequate enough. It really isn't, to pay mortgages and bills and heating and food and all of that. Yeah, and mine was for quite a long time as well. I think I was off sort of, ended up being nearly 10 weeks. And I can't imagine going 10 weeks without me pay. It just, I wouldn't have been able to survive. But that said, I simply couldn't have worked. I mean, I could have pretended to work, but I'd have been neither use nor ornament. I was, really poorly. So yeah, Paul's absolutely right. If you don't have, I mean, I suppose it goes hand in hand with decent pay. If we had decent employers and decent legislation that meant you can't pay crap pay, then that would go some way. My employer is fantastic and pay decent wages, and I get sick pay. I don't see why it shouldn't be like that for everyone. The gig economy is absolutely ruining people, and I think we need to try and get legislation in that tackles that, because it's not good enough. I get that there's an argument that people like to have the freedom, and they're like, oh, I think I might work today. That is it's just a fantasy. It really is a fairy tale, because I'm sure there are people who want to top up their bits and bobs of an hour here and there, but most people just want a secure job so they can stop getting stressed out about it. And with a secure job should come a robust sick pay scheme.
Yes.
That's what I think.
Thank you. And finally, our last question. This is the poison chalice. I'm going to give it to Samantha, who volunteered for it, I might point out. But you realise, Samantha, whatever you answer on this, you will lose half your voters. Okay? However you answer. So this is worth watching, people. This will be a miracle of political adroitness. And the question is, has the nation overreacted to the death of Prince Philip?
Well, it depends who you talk to, John. Personally, for me, the biggest thing that it's affected for me has been the disruption to political campaigning, because I have 3 children and I do not get to watch the television. So the fact that the whole of the TV went off, I didn't even notice until the evening when I tried to put the radio on, so I didn't have to listen to everybody eating. So I mean, in seriousness, we live in a monarchy, and whether you agree with that or not, that this is the way our country is set up, and there are protocols and there are ways of doing things, and you could argue that in the modern age, are we moving too far away from these things? Is it a tradition that we want to keep? That's a decision for us and a decision for our children. Interesting statistics here saying that ABC said that 75 of the complaints about the Prince Philip coverage was related to the interruption of TV drama Vera. I guess they had the great idea to put up a specific form just for complaints about Prince Philip's memorial coverage, and then they took it down because it broke all records of complaints of all time. So
I just interrupting you, Simon. So that I thought that I mean my response was that this isn't respectful. This is just saving money. I really, you know, when they're replaying all these old films and it just goes round and round and round. I mean, they had about half an hour of stuff that they just repeated every half hour. And I just thought, you are taking advantage of this poor chap's death to save yourself money. And that was my outrage.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things where that you say there is a polarized opinion over it, but if we can't, at a moment when people are feeling genuine grief and loss and sadness, if we can't at this moment agree to disagree and try at least not to rub salt in each other's wounds, then you know that's where we're going wrong as society, isn't it?
Thank you for that wise and statesperson-like reply. I'm going to avoid Poy Stewart because he can't afford to lose half his votes. You can.
Don't say that.
I think we're out of time. And so, unless Laura and Paul, you're absolutely desperate to comment on this,
we're a bit late on, weren't we? So we can go a couple of minutes. I think that this is an extremely worrying development where we've got a system where one vigil. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anything. If people want to grieve for a monarch, if they want to do that. Personally, I'm not for the monarchy. I don't believe anyone should be born better than anyone else. I remember the week that my daughter was born, I believe that one of the royal family was born as well. And I remember getting into an argument with a family member I really respect and love about... they were very pro-monarchy, and I was like, so you think my daughter is worse, is lesser than their son? That's what the monarchy is. That's what it is, and there's no two ways about it. That's the truth. If you're a monarchist, you believe that they're born better. And that's than you or your children, the people you love. But that's fine if you want to do that. If you want to be subservient, that's okay. I'm not a subservient kind of person. I believe that kings exist because of their subjects, or queens, because of their subjects, and subjects believe that they exist because of their king. So it's a different thing. But anyway, I was more concerned about the way they treated the vigil. When you compare it with Sarah Everard's vigil, where they're body slamming women left, right, and centre, but then they've got like a completely different way of reacting to Prince Philip's. I would rather have seen them both treated with respect than this absolute nonsense. And I was quite disgusted at the rehabilitation of Prince Andrew over this. When they pushed him out in front of the cameras and they're like, let's take this opportunity to rehabilitate this guy. And I nearly said something a little bit... on Socialist Night Live, I would have said the N-word. Not that N-word, but... the one that started, well.
That's enough, Paul.
Anyway, so the rehabilitation of Prince Andrew, like, come on, the sweatless wonder, dear me, don't wail him out. What an aggravating thing to have done. What disrespect they have for the people when they think, actually, we'll get this guy out, the Epstein adjacent weirdo. Let's get him out.
And Paul, just to sort of interrupt you, disrespect to Prince Philip.
Sorry, I saw a comment come up.
The fact that the disrespect to Prince Philip that the royal family, what a crowd they are. That the patriarch of the family dies, and they use that to rehabilitate Prince Andrew, who disgraced himself. And you just think, who are these people? And I was just so cross about that. Anyway, last word, Laura.
I don't know if I've got that much more to add. I think for me, like, think what you want about the royal family. I think I've made it clear that I'm not a fan for the reasons Paul's pointed out. As soon as you have kids and somebody else thinks their kids are better than yours, it's game over for me. But I think it was really... I'm not going to get into all the deep discussions about the monarchy and stuff, but what I will say is taking all of the TV shows off and forcing people to mourn was quite like annoying. There's a lot of people who just wanted to watch Coronation Street and couldn't. I'm fine with people mourning the royal family when they passed. I do that in your own time. You know, I get your doilies out and your commemorative plates and stuff. But like, to force the whole country to sit and watch endless videos of him and stuff, I just felt it was a bit much, and people should have been allowed to do what they wanted to do.
Laura, I felt sometimes that they were working very hard at trying to get us to mourn. So that I'd really like to really know how much of this was media exaggeration, just trying to build up this the whole nation is distraught kind of thing, and how much of it was validly real. If it's validly real, then
it did feel a bit like that. I was like, look, everyone, you should be crying. It was like, okay, like they were touting it as some tragedy, but he was 99. He'd lived a really good, fulfilled life, very privileged. I'm sure he was very happy.
He died on the 99th day of the year. Did you know that?
Well, there you go. It's a conspiracy, John. Somebody murdered him in his 99th year as he slept in his bed.
It is never a good thing when any human being, sort of their family loves them, they leave their family. There's a dreadful sense of loss, and there's no doubt that this guy was very prominent in our news, in our nation. And he's gone, and I can understand that people miss him. Sort of the only negative comment I've got to say is that these people who seem desperate to say that the monarchy are better than them, you try and say that you might be better than them, you might be more intelligent or have more experience. Oh my God, they get very uppity at that. They're not going to let you be more better than them. So, but the royal family, they can be better than me, sort of. Anyway, I am going to bring the show to an end. We're going to have our break. I'm going to try and be back on time because I've been late the last two times, haven't I? So I shall have a very quick word with my wife, and I'll see you back here in 5 minutes, everybody, when Sam's going to start taking your comments and any questions which you want to raise, and those are the ones that get us to say the indiscreet things and get into trouble. See you in 5 minutes' time. See how much trouble you can get us into. Bye bye.
My name is Jack Atkins and I'm not afraid, and I live and die by this vow that I've made. The only good fascist, a dead one, they say, and around the rear we are. When I first left all them months ago, I told them I'd come not to kill but to cure. Well, for an ambulance driver my shot's pretty sure, and around the rear we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. I told my mother, now mother, be strong, for the left way is right and the right way is wrong. And you can stick that on my grave when I'm gone, for I'm a real we are. There'll be no passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. Fascists have come for our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no passaran here today. Cast may be cast, and the cast may be cast, but you armies of darkness, you best do your worst. 'Cause to win, yeah, well, you gotta get past those first, and around here we are. There'll be no passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. The fascists have come for our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no passaran here, no passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. No passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. No passaran, no passaran, no passaran today. The fascists have come for our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no passaran here today.
To the show after the show. Did we have an actual name for the after show? No, it's just the bit where we blather a bit and talk about the things. Yeah, Jackie says, why haven't we managed to get Prince Andrew in court yet? Well, what I mean, I guess it's just because he's a rich, privileged royal, and because he doesn't have to go to court here, does he? He has to go to America, and we won't extradite him. That's the situation, isn't it?
No, they don't want him to. Well, he's got a choice to cooperate with them or not. I'm sure there's plenty of evidence. You know, there was hundreds and hundreds of CD-ROMs of people in Jeffrey Epstein's place doing all sorts of things. I'm sure they have plenty of evidence. If they wanted to do things allegedly, they would have enough evidence, I must say. Which is why I didn't use that word earlier on, Anne, when you were asking, because I would have had to have said allegedly afterwards. So, yeah.
It's just, I mean, you just think this should be, I mean, it never should be allowed to have these open secrets. You talk about open secrets that, oh, we always knew they were a paedophile, you know, But why is that acceptable? It shouldn't be acceptable. Get in the sea. These people don't belong in our society. Get away. We cannot accept it. Ah, Chris is back. He says, what is Labour Durham County Council going to do to protect our NHS? That's a really good question. You know what? Why not? They can't sack me yet. I don't have the job. I don't think that that is the Labour line, isn't it? Vote Labour, protect our NHS. It's a ridiculous line to campaign on because, as Chris says, is alluding to, local government don't fund the NHS. There are things that local councillors can do to support the local NHS. Unfortunately, a lot of the money that is spent in the local authority is spent on adult social care, they supporting kids with special educational needs, which ends up including diagnosis and all kinds of stuff. And also there's overview and scrutiny committees where you're actually overviewing and scrutinising the local NHS offer. So it's not fair to say that there's nothing at all to do with local authority governance that is associated with the NHS. But I agree with you on that, Chris. I think it's not a great line for us to campaign on, which is why I'm not campaigning on it. Paul?
It's the difference between a campaign slogan and actually doing something. So, like when Labour campaigned in 2019, we could have protected the NHS. When Labour produced that document that said they were going to sell the NHS off to US firms, and that was really protecting the NHS, but voted in Conservatives now, and they are selling to US firms, and no one seems to care. And it's really worrying that the media isn't covering this. That we are having this privatization by stealth. So yeah, it's a vote. It's an attempt to get votes on the NHS in a similar way to like flags will get us votes somehow. It doesn't make much sense, and it actually puts pressure on local authorities. And you're like, why didn't you protect our NHS? Well, we don't have the power to do that. That's the national government.
Oh, is anybody in County Durham campaigning on
it's a national thing?
Yeah, I don't think anybody is in County Durham. That's the thing, because we are very much hoping to carry the can at the end of it. So we all know that it's an impossible slogan to actually deliver on as a council against a Conservative government. So I don't think anybody in County Durham is campaigning on it, actually.
I mean, there are a number of things we do have. You alluded to it. The problem with this is that I'm on the environment economy side of things, and the social work health side of things I've left to other people. But we do have our joint adults well-being and health sort of committee. It does. Lucy Hovels is the woman to get on this because she's the chair of that scrutiny committee, and she's also on the joint committee with the CCG, with the what's it?
Clinical Commissioning
Clinical Commissioning Authority, yes, and so they do actually intervene, and there's been one or two things where Jack, you might remember John Robinson called together that committee and chaired it, and was it Bishop Auckland, Sam, where they stepped in very firmly and actually got a change of policy, didn't they? They were going to close down, was it Ward 6? That they were
yes. It was very much been in the right place at the right time. And basically they were going to close a stroke rehabilitation unit in Bishop Auckland Hospital and centralise all of the services in Durham. And basically we managed to catch them when they hadn't dotted their I's and crossed the T's, and basically say, look, if you proceed with this, we can prove you've done it illegally, so you need to go back to the drawing board. And thankfully that interruption enabled us to keep the ward open.
So, I mean, the county council can use its authority its reputation. But you're absolutely right. We do not have multi-billion pounds of money to step in and save hospitals or GPs, service surgeries or anything like that. And it's a principle, isn't it, rather than an actual ability of local government. Correct.
I mean, I think that obviously it's a campaign that's been designed by the Parliamentary Labour Party or specific people in the Parliamentary Labour Party, and they're saying vote Labour for the NHS, which makes sense for them, but it doesn't make sense for us. And you can argue, oh, but what you're saying is you support the NHS because you voted Labour. Well, yes, but let's not make the mistake of repeating things that we've criticised other people for. I criticised the Conservative Party for saying that, voting Conservative was voting for Brexit. It's not helpful at all to oversimplify these deeply complicated political discussions, because we need to help people understand politics every step of the way. I mean, I know there will be people who go into polling booths on May the 6th and go, what is a police and crime commissioner? I had no idea I was voting for this. What do they do? And either spoil their ballot or just cross a random name so that they've got it done. That's not a failure of them, but it's a failure of our society, which totally neglects to actually inform people about what they're voting for. Which is, something for us to try and fix, I suppose. Oh, goodness,
Yeah,
yes.
because you said police and crime commissioner.
Yes.
And yeah, earlier in the week, the fella, the Tory that's running for Durham and Darlington, he was showing off his nomination form and being accepted. And the party he will be running for will be on the ballot paper as Conservative candidate, more police, safer streets, on the ballot. That's been registered with the Electoral Commission. So Joy Allen will be the Labour Party.
Yeah.
Right, and this other guy's got a slogan.
Surely that's against electoral law. It's got to be.
Apparently not. You can have, as long as you can get it registered. There's also, when you've looked, you can have local Tory, local Conservative group, local, all sorts of stuff up there. And that's an actual slogan, isn't it, on the ballot? So people will go and wonder which one to take. And
we are descending into an anti-democratic society, aren't we? From that alone, you can see what they're trying to do, what their hopes are, and what they're going to do long term.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly for that situation, isn't it? Somebody coming at the polling booth, not knowing what they're voting for, and going, "Oh yeah, I want more police." Cross. It's totally unethical. It's totally unethical.
And it's a lie.
And it's a lie, because the reason we've got fewer police is because the Tories have cut them all. It's about 500 members of staff across County Durham that have been cut.
I'm actually more interested in how they use the police as well. Back to the Sarah Everard thing. How are they using those police forces, and how are the new bills coming along, and what that means for travellers and Gypsy and Roma, and all those things.
Yeah. Mia says she thinks we've been an anti-democratic society for years. I mean, I tend to agree with you, Mia, especially when you can just influence opinion so easily on social media if you've got money. That's what it comes down to, and the electoral law is so slow at catching up with new technology that you just run laps around them, really. Graham says, should there be a public debate between candidates? Would this generate more interest? Yes, I think so. The trick comes in situations like mine. I was talking to a local journalist about my political campaign, and the problem is we've got 3 Labour candidates, 3 Conservative candidates, 2 independents, and the Lib Dem, something like that. Anyway, top and bottom of it is we've got about 10 candidates going for 3 positions. So to try and organise a hustings type event between us would be quite confusing. I guess we could organise for a spokesperson for each political group. But in general, mostly, usually, there are hustings of some kinds for political candidates because it's for everybody's benefit, really. But whether they'll get one off the ground with COVID and, you've got the added difficulty. Hustings, like parliamentary hustings, are often held in really neutral places like a local church. But if you're using a Zoom, who's got the ability to mute you? Who's got the ability to kick you out of the room? Those decisions become very crucial. Oh.
I've tried every election I've been in since about the turn of the century to say I'm happy to turn up to hustings, and I've never been able to find anybody who was prepared to turn up. I've asked the local editor of the newspaper, the local chap in charge of the radio. I've asked this journalist who's trying to, if anybody, just tell me where to go. I don't. It doesn't need to be neutral. I'll go wherever you want me to do. I'll sit there and I'll answer the questions you've got. I'll listen to your comments. I mean, this is what Paul said. It's about listening. And I've never been able to find anybody who was prepared to sit next to me. And they all talk the talk, but when it comes to sort of sitting there and answering questions, they all run and hide.
We love a bit of political education on here. Anne's asking what a hustings is. A hustings is just a meeting where you have all the candidates in there. From a local ward, so it's just basically, like, have you ever seen Question Time? It's a little bit like Question Time, but only for all the candidates. So yeah, I remember going to the TUC before and saying, "Oh, there was a hustings on," and I was like, "What's a hustings?" No, and I've like people describe, but don't tell you what the word means, and yeah, so it's important to do that, and I hate. It's such an easy word to understand if you know what it means, but without being told, then you're always going to be like excluded from the conversation. So very important. There's a couple of questions early on that Tim asked, and that you won't be able to scroll back through, Samantha. But he asked 2 questions. He said, less than 30% of town and parish councils being contested in County Durham next month. Why are so few people standing? And should those standing for county council have served in town and parish first? If so, why?
And this is interesting because it kind of comes from me and my situation as well as one of the things that sparked this off, because one of the Conservative candidates that is standing against me is a Durham University student. We can imply that he probably doesn't expect to win because he's in his second year. So I imagine he's got plans after he's finished his degree that don't involve hanging around Shildon. That's an assumption, but he doesn't seem to have ever been to Shildon, and he came to my attention because he posted a disparaging comment on the town council's Facebook page about how we haven't done enough about fly tipping, and it's just like, what do you know? So we have this thing in politics where political parties will put up what is called a paper candidate, which is they'll put up a candidate that people can vote for who they don't expect to win, and they generally don't put a lot of effort into campaigning for that person. And in County Durham, for Durham County Council, you can stand for any election in Durham County Council. So, for example, I in Shildon, I could stand for election in Concert, for example. No problem at all. There would be no legal barrier to me doing that. In addition to that, you can move immediately after your election. So I could get elected as a Shildon County Councillor in Shildon and then move to Australia and then still be a Durham County Councillor even though I did not live in Shildon anymore. So, huh?
You have to go to a meeting every 6 months, or you
have to go to a meeting every 6 months. Yeah.
You have to fly back from Australia every 6 months. Be more expensive than living in Shildon, that.
It probably would be, but it's a hypothetical thing. So this thing about candidate, I mean, obviously, as a Shildon person, standing for election in Shildon and being raised in Shildon, going to school in Shildon, I think those local contacts and actually living there are really important. But this is one of the reasons why it is what it is it allows people to be put up for election. So, there's an idea that it's more, you've got like a moral obligation to give give people somebody to vote for, so it you can understand why Conservative voters would feel upset if they couldn't vote for a Conservative in Shildon and Dean Valley, even if there are only 10 of them, So, and also the Conservative Party can spot trends in voting if they put a candidate up. If they can see that the voting trend is going up 10% every year, then maybe next year they'll put up a candidate who they actually think will win. So it's complicated. The reason why people don't, Tim and Chris mentioned this earlier about so few people putting themselves up for town and parish councils. I mean, there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, they tend to be not paid or very low paid. So if you are working, you generally can't, you sort of disenfranchised from it. You can't afford to take hours off work to commit to town council duties. So there's that. The other thing is that some town and parish councils do it on purpose. They intentionally make it difficult for you to access them or make the meetings really boring so members of the public don't come and cause hassle. That's definitely not my position, by the way. I would love it if more members of the public came to Shildon Town Council. But also, local politics has an image problem. When me and John have been talking about this for a very, very long time. It was one of the things I discussed on these actual radio shows, how few elected representatives are under 35 or under 25. We've just got this, we fall into this trap where elected representatives are generally there to as a hobby during their retirement. It might include a little bit of an allowance if they're lucky enough to get that from the council, and they can just add that onto their pension, and that's fine by them. But we need to get past that, because local councils are there to represent the people, and they should be as diverse as the people that they represent, and they're not anywhere near that at the moment. And that's obviously one of the reasons that I wanted to stand, and I'm glad to see coming up in the next in the next cohort, there are a lot more younger councillors and people who are actually of working age. So hopefully they will be well positioned to actually represent working people. Do you have anything to say about that, Stuart? I think I've had a bit of a speech there.
I mean, I'm pleased by the people we're putting forward as a Labour Party. I think we've got a really good balance of experience and new people. Obviously, it's very hard to fill, entire slates for, 41 or so town and parishes across Sedgefield. I don't know how many have in Bishop Auckland, but across County Durham, it's got to be hundreds of towns and parishes. Finding people to fill every position is difficult, but I'm pleased by the opportunities that we're putting forward.
Aye, and on what Tim was saying about whether people should stand for parish and town or before they go for county, maybe it's a little bit of a funny one. Like, for me, I've always been interested in big politics, but I'm interested in how you change conditions for everyone. But personally, I think it comes from below. So you need to get everyone to come with you. And, one of those thankless tasks is doing parish or town council things. And I think when people get involved in, I think you should just stop getting yourself involved in petty politics at that point and just say, right, okay, what's best? Because, you are not going to change the fundamental systems. You are not going to change who is in control of the means of production, for example, at that level. But you can make a difference within your system. But whether someone comes through and goes through to a high level and has those ambitions as well, then maybe I think they should be brought through and have that local grounding. But at the same time, I wouldn't rule someone out if they had really good big ideas. It's a different thing. There's some people who will sit on a parish council their entire life and do amazing work and be great, and I'll be really grateful for that, who never want to go for higher office. Maybe it would help people being time served. I don't know. It's helped me sitting in parish council meetings. I'll find them incredibly dull at times and not really the kind of politics I want to be into. But you do get to listen to people who want things to change at a local level. You get to hear local concerns. So it's kind of good in a way. Can we bring up our merch, by the way? Laura, have you got a badge there?
I've got 2 badges. I've got this one, which is like just a
Have you got
normal
a John
little
D.
green
Clare
badge.
one?
I don't know
You
where they
don't
are.
put people off early on. Mention that
We do.
later. There's the booby prize.
We've
Have
got
you
our
got
special
the-
edition ones as well. There's not many of these.
They're awesome.
These are
They're
hand
awesome.
painted by Michelle, so there's not many of these badges available. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I haven't even got one
hoodies?
yet.
Have you got hoodies? You had. Are they
Okay,
there?
so yes, we do. That's the back. Oh, hang on. I can't do this because I'm not in, yeah, there we go. There we go. That's the back. And
How much are the hoodie? How much are the hoodies?
I don't know if we've decided a price yet because we are not going to make any money of them, so we're trying to work out how much it costs us to post them.
Just make sure you don't end up paying. out.
Yeah, that's all we want to do. We want to end up not, but they are from. I think we've got someone on Socialist Night Live on Saturday. It's from a company called No Sweat, and Laura, you know a little bit more about this than me. Get yourself talking
Yeah,
about
so
this.
basically there's a disaster in one of the, I don't want to say too much because the person's going to tell us all about, but there was a disaster in a factory in Bangladesh, and this company No Sweat have sort of, I guess, repurposed those people and given them jobs, and there's a lot of unsecure work over there, and they get paid a pittance, so it's proper ethical stuff. So it costs a little bit more, takes a little bit more time, but totally worth it because you know that you're not getting stuff from a sweatshop. So yeah, that's why they're called No Sweat, and hopefully we'll have someone on Socialist Night Live on Saturday night at 9 o'clock to tell us a bit more. They've got it's 10 years, I think, since this disaster where they began, so they're holding a load of events this month, so they're going to come on and tell us all about that, so that'll be dead interesting.
Do you think Prince Andrew would want one?
No sweat.
He doesn't need one. He doesn't need one because he doesn't sweat because he uses Lynx Africa. But we do. I think details on how they're coming soon. But I think that's probably going to be. It's definitely going to be a members only thing because we've got limited numbers. We will reorder, but there's the T-shirt as well, which is awesome, and we've done a little photo shoot and stuff. It's just for fun, really, because
the photo shoot is awesome. Awesome.
This is
When
this
you
is what we
release
do.
the first album. That's what I want to know.
We'll send you some of our band photos from back in the day, John. You'll love
I
them.
mean, it's just unbelievable. But it's sort of, and it's just so wonderful. There's you, Paul, there, when you're sort of full of hope and power, and then sort of Michelle looking at the front is those are really kind of cool and laid back, and sort of, and then there's Laura there, giving it all this, and I just thought, well, you could have an album cover from that. It's absolutely brilliant.
Do you know a little known fact about Socialist Think Tank is that we do have our own drum machine and we are considering doing our own stuff again. Laura, you need to learn how to work that drum machine. you know.
I know, I really want to. I'm sitting here and I've got my guitar, my little baby orange amp, my drum machine, everything that I'm desperate to get on, but there's just no time. It's just gathering dust. I hate it.
Back in the day, back in the day, were you two? No, I was kind of old when we did the band stuff anyway. But we wouldn't be just to take it away. Chris Hood said, did we want to get into his nerd question, which was quiz time for political nerds like us? Only the Labour Party has candidates standing in every ward for the forthcoming county council election. Now, I think that's a really positive thing about the Labour Party, that they are the ones who actually care about the community at a low level. But that doesn't mean other people that stand don't. Like Chris, who isn't a Labour Party member, but he definitely does care about his community. The Tories have candidates in every ward apart from one, which is a whole other debate, by the way. Can we guess which one? Which ward are the Conservatives not standing anyone in? So I guess, like, and again, for non-political people, a ward is kind of like an area.
Ward where they've done a deal with the independents.
Shall we explain what a ward is, and shall we explain what a constituency is and stuff? Because who wants to do that? John, tell us what a ward is and what a constituency is.
It's just an area, a neighbourhood of people who elect people. So
it's small though.
Well, it depends on what the council is. I'm the county councillor for Aycliffe North Ward, and that has 2 town council wards, each of which elects 6 town councillors. So I've got Bailey Park, who elects 6 town councillors, and Woodham, that elects 6 town councillors, and they've got about 4,000 electors in each, and they elect the sort of 12 people to go to the town council. Then all those 8,000 electors, they go together and they elect me. And so that, but then and I'm a county councillor, that's a different level, so it's a bigger one. And then what you've got is, I think that Setchfield is made up of 10 county council wards. And I think it's is it about 50, 60,000 electors? And that's called a constituency, and they elect the MP. And so you have this hierarchy of areas, and it's just a group of electors getting together. Was that clear enough?
Yeah, that was good. And saying we don't need that many councillors. It depends what they're useful for, really. Like I would always say the more people who want to get involved, the better. And I suppose that these positions aren't being filled, so maybe she's right. We don't need that many councillors, or maybe we need more people who are willing to stand up for the communities. I know in Wingate people are scared to stand up at the moment because people have had the houses burned out and what have you. But you know, maybe if we all stuck together and went for it, then we can improve something.
Depends what you
I wanted to guess at the non-Tory standing seat.
Where do we?
Stuart.
Yeah, my guess would be Easington.
Ward.
No, I'm going to guess somewhere over Derwent side, that they've done a deal with the Derwent side in Independence or something like that. That we won't stand if you don't stand, or something like that. Do we know?
I don't know.
A ward where Tory councillors didn't stand,
Yes.
like where they didn't. What for? Does that include county?
That's what he's talking about.
So, it's just county council wards where they haven't stood, right? Okay, so they might have a parish council. I just don't know. Well, I would have said.
We don't know the answer. Is there something?
I don't know the answer. Chris knows the answer. We should all guess. We should all guess.
It's Tow Law.
Do you think it's Tow Law? Right, John, where do you think it is?
Well, that's what I've said. That I mean, it depends.
Derwent side, you said. Laura, where do you think?
Somewhere in the Derwent side area. Yes.
God, I genuinely don't have a clue. I don't know. I can't even guess.
I'm sure Chris put this on a post at one point. Stuart, did you have a go?
Yeah, Easington.
Just
that's what
Easington ward. I think Easington's more than one ward. Easington Colliery, Easington Village, I think. Oh, Samantha's one. That's what Google will do.
Town Law.
Town Law.
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
had put out of our misery. that could have been a very long show.
Shouldn't have stood in Wingate. I find it really annoying when people who've got nothing to do with the place just stand somewhere against a local person who's been doing a good job. I find it quite arrogant when people do that. But then again, I suppose people deserve a choice. But someone who lives nowhere near the area puts up. It's so frustrating.
I've just had a nosy at the Town Law statement of persons nominated, and is it because one of those persons was a Conservative candidate up until the point they were exposed for certain opinions,
Absolutely, that's.
and then they became a nothing?
Because he shared it. Because he shared a golly. Is that the one? He was sharing a.
Yeah, go on.
He shared a golly around, didn't he? And then said that all sorts of racist things, and used to be Labour one time.
But, I mean, there's a whole catalogue. There's two of them out there. One of them, both of them in northwest Durham. Both of them not open, just supported by the MP, but recruited by the MP. Both of them found to have a history of racism on their Facebook threads. Both of them suspended by the Tory party. So my God, they must have been bad. And sort of yes, I crossed swords with Mr. Batson when he tried to persuade Aycliffe Village to split off from Great Aycliffe Town Council and came in from Town Law to take part in that campaign. And I tried to stop that happening.
See, Tricky Dicky likes these little alliances. And remember, the government have just found themselves not guilty of being racist. So that's fine. So there's no racism in the Conservative Party or in Britain in general. And also, that will work out. This could have been my moment of the week. Actually, it should have been David Cameron, shouldn't it? David Cameron probably has done something really bad. But it's okay because the Conservatives are going to... they're going to investigate him and find him not guilty of corruption, even though it's him and Matt Hancock and Rishi Sunak and all of them are in it together, and but they will be not guilty of those things, because if you choose the people who decide whether or not you're guilty, you tend to win, don't you?
Can I just introduce an issue of controversy, because I might disagree with you on this. I want to go back to that other thing that Tim Dredge asked, because I do get a bit upset by this, and am I wrong? I'm prepared to be wrong about it, but what I think is that I came into politics in 1992 because when the Tories closed down the mines and they'd been lying about Scargill, lying about the mines, and that was it for me for the rest of the time. And I spent 3 years putting out chairs and delivering leaflets and never asking to do anything except just help get Labour people elected to take on these Tories. And in 1995, I was asked to be a town councillor. And I went in and they asked me to be chair of environment, and I refused because I didn't know what the hell was going on Great Aycliffe Town Council or how things worked. I mean, I wouldn't have known what to do or what to say. So for 3 years, 3 years, I just I was allowed myself to be asked to be vice chair, but I wouldn't be chair. And then eventually the chair moved on and I became the chair. But it wasn't until 2013 that I thought, well, I'm going to have a bash now at being a county councillor. And I spent the first 4 years just at the backbench and just watching and learning how things go on. Because it's a £1.3 billion a year super organisation. It has depths, unlimited depths. There's huge amounts of knowledge there. There's officers who are just absolutely know so much. We've got people who are national experts in their field as our officers. And I do feel that I wonder at the arrogance of someone who has never been involved, even at the lowest level, never even been to watch a town council meeting, thinking they can go and be the county councillor and make an adequate stab at that. I mean, is my outrage just because I feel threatened? I mean, is this out of order?
No, I mean we've got some really good town councillors who weren't going to stand this year. Who this would have been the first term, and I said to them, I said, why? Why? They've got this fear that you end up on the town council and you end there up there for the rest of your life, and you're taking opportunities away from new people coming through, and they didn't want to be that person. But I'm saying, look, I don't know how you feel, but to me, after 4 years of being a town councillor, I feel like I finally understand my way around the building. You know, I've only just got my legs under the table to understand how the system works. And I think it's valuable for people to consider going for a town or a parish council as a way of to train yourself, like for some free training to potentially then step up to a county council position, so that you're going in there slightly more informed. I guess some people believe the spin that councillors sit on their bum the whole time doing out and just get handed brown envelopes full of money. And gosh, I wish.
Can I
I
can I
don't wish,
do
I
it?
wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Can I
go
do an
for it.
alternative point of view on this one? Some people are scared of standing for anything because they're working class, because they don't feel privileged enough to do it, because they worry about themselves, because like Laura, Samantha, Stuart, me, I don't know, John, if you've ever had imposter syndrome, but most people have some kind of imposter syndrome where they go, I can't possibly do that, and they need to be encouraged by other people to do things. That is our system. We've got other people who don't bother having imposter syndrome because they are feeling like they are so privileged and they are so right. They know what they're doing, and they can just sail in there and they can just go, right, I can do this. And actually, when you get into there, you find out that most of them don't have a clue what they're doing. And I will say this at every single level I've met MPs who are entirely incompetent, who are politically inept, don't have a clue what is going on. I've met the same in county councillors. I've met the same in parish councillors. You know, the level of ineptitude is not proportional to the height of the government. And I'm sure Boris Johnson is entirely inept in so many things. Apart from his entirely the only thing that differentiates Boris Johnson is the platform that he has, and the access he has to government, and his just ambition. He just is ambitious. Most people I know would do tremendous jobs. Like lots of people, like in comparison with the likes of Boris Johnson, in comparison with the likes of Dominic Raab, who just like goes around looking like someone who's so confident in himself and yet absolutely inept. That is the level that we are working at. So if you go to your parish council and you think someone's an idiot, the likelihood is you'll find the same at MP level. The likelihood is you'll see that in cabinet level. Like, look at Gavin Williamson. Dear me, I wouldn't trust him to tie a child's shoelace. You know, never mind run an education system. And yet there he is. So whilst we're saying, oh, you know, serve your time, do that. What if you've got this vast life experience, you've done all these things, you're absolutely amazing, and someone comes up to you and says, tell you what, you go for MP. You go for MP because I'd vote for you. Why not? Why not? Why not someone who's 19-year-old who's just absolutely sound, spot on? Go for it. Anne's asking, do I mean full of shite? I think lots of people are, but that's not necessarily what I mean. No, I mean that some people just don't have a clue what they're doing, but they are willing to lie in order, and actually they have that self-confidence and self-belief that they will just do anything. They will say anything So don't think that you, if you're listening to this, you might be the person who is best capable in this entire country of running it. You know, you might be, you know, within our small little group of listeners, people who are listening to one another, you might be so superior in capability of running the country than someone who actually thinks they are. So don't ever put yourself down. So that's why I'm against this idea of having to serve your time and having to do apprenticeships and stuff like that, because that is the establishment system. There are some brilliant people out there who need to have a voice very, very quickly, and they may have spent 20 years being a mum, or they may have spent 20 years doing something else, or they may have been they may just be brilliant and be a young person. Don't let anything rule you out. I don't think time served is a thing. I think interest in your community is a very important thing, but time served, nah. Don't just go through the motions, do something special.
And I'm going to disagree with Paul because you can be a brilliant person, but if you walk into a massive bear trap in your first year of office and totally throw your own career in the bin by accidentally getting in bed with a racist or doing something that would have just been so easily avoided if you'd took a bit of time to understand the lay of the land. I think, fools rush in where angels fear to tread is where I'm saying there.
But you could get in bed with a racist like Boris Johnson, who is clearly a racist, and then you've got but then he becomes prime minister. So what I'm saying is, if you're working class and you've got these ideas, go for it. If you have ideals where you're not racist, get yourself supported by a good team around you, whether that's in the Labour Party, where you would hope that you would have plenty of anti-racists. Get a team around you, get someone good. And then something like the Labour Party should be pushing these people forward and encouraging people to do these things and stand up. That's where I'm coming from. So I'm not saying do it as an island. No one should be doing this on their own, but don't be held back from doing it because of, you think that Boris Johnson's better than you. That was more my point, rather than not fitting in with structures who can help you. That was my point.
I agree with what Jane said over on YouTube, which is imposter syndrome is almost definitely a sign that people like you are underrepresented in positions of authority and that you are needed. I think that's very true. And you're right, not one day has Boris Johnson woke up and thought, I wonder if I can do this, and that's a real impediment to the rest of us, that we're all inflicted with doubts over our own ability, where some people just go ahead and do it. So I do agree in general, we do need to get on and do stuff. Yes, we shouldn't hold ourselves back, but yes, just be careful. There are some also excellent questions coming up, but we are going to have to wind up because it's nearly 11 o'clock and I still haven't actually put the chickens to bed. So does anybody have any parting words?
Well, there were 3 good questions. One of them was, what's the difference between a town council, a parish council, and a county council? And sorry, no time to answer that, but sort of a great question. The second one is, Graham asked me, is it any worse now than when I started? Smashing question, no time, sorry. And Chris Hood has said that I have answered this question about how I think it's going to go, but how do you think it's going to go? Maybe we can remember these for next week, eh? And so because we do need to get away.
Is somebody going to write it down?
And my other final word is, are these people not brilliant? Are they not? Are they not intrinsically interesting? And and what a fantastic show. And who needs hustings when you got these 4? That's what I'm asking.
Well, we're not competing against each other. We all think Samantha needs to be elected, and Stuart needs to be elected, and John needs to be elected, and me and Laura, we're working outside the system because we don't think that being elected is that important. I am elected as a parish councillor. But we're trying to take the struggle outside of the system as well.
Great.
Awesome.
Are you saying bye-bye, Sam? Are you saying good night?
Yeah, let's say bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week. God bless. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks everyone, and
Keep the red flag flying.